The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the International Association for College Admission Counseling's Webinar Wednesday series. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, 2019, and our topic is Tips for First-Time Attendees. My name is Joe Jackalone from Marist College. I'll be serving as your webinar moderator for the evening session. Today I'm joined by my international colleagues who are eager to share their knowledge with you. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on the International ACAC website shortly. I'd like to ask the panelists to please introduce themselves.
All right, so I'll go ahead and kick us off. My name is Wilson Lee, and I currently serve here at the Yongsan International School of Seoul here in Seoul, South Korea. I am very fortunate to be making a transition actually over to Singapore American this upcoming season. I currently serve on the executive board for International ACAC as your NACAC delegate. And as far as my count, if I can recall, I think this is my 6th or 7th International ACAC conference. Happy to be here, guys.
Okay, hi, my name is Jessica Guyver, and I work at the University of Texas in San Antonio, Texas. I am also serving on the mentor committee at International ACAC, and last year was my first time, so I am a real first-timer. This year will be my 2nd International ACAC annual conference.
Hello, everybody. My name is Becky Conowitz, and I represent Santa Clara University, and I'm also your incoming president for International ACAC, so working very closely with Western to host this conference. And I have attended 13 international ACACs, and many of those were OACACs, our old name. So excited for Western.
Hi, my name is Samantha DeLeon, and I am the Associate Director for International Enrollment at Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. I serve on the Mentors Committee, and this will be actually my 5th International ACAC conference. So I look forward to meeting some of you guys in Western.
Excellent, thank you very much. So before we begin the presentation, there's just a few housekeeping items I'd like to mention. We have 1 hour for this session, and we will leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to address your questions. And you're able to submit your questions and comments throughout the presentation via the question box on your screen, and then we'll answer them at the end. So during the entire presentation, feel free to just jot down any question you might have, and if it doesn't get addressed during the presentation, we'll make sure that your questions get answered at the end. And if your question does not, for some reason, you can always contact our colleagues on the panelists to get your questions answered. We also have a few poll questions that we would like to ask throughout the presentation, and we have a few of them right now that we'd like to get out of the way before we begin the presentation. So if you could take a few moments and answer the first poll question. I'm going to launch that now. There you go. So take your time to fill out the questions, and then we'll post the results. That's almost everyone. Okay, just a few more moments. I'll close the poll. And here you go. Great. All right, let's do another one. Here's your next question. Just take a few moments to answer that. And we'll just have almost everyone submitting an answer. And we'll close that in a few moments. Okay, here you go. And then our last question for just this moment. So I have a few more during the rest of the presentation. Here you go. And we'll leave this up just for a few moments, and after this, then we'll get started with our presentation. Okay, and here are the results. Excellent. Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Joe, for that. It was great to see the diversity that's listening to us today. And I think for the first sort of introduction, what do we mean by first timers? This means many things. It could mean first time coming to our conference, first year in our membership. It could also mean first time switching roles. Maybe you went from admission counselor to high school counselor, or maybe you switched into the independent role, or maybe you switched to an organization. So really it's your first time and you want to get reacquainted with our organization and our conference. The other part of this is I think maybe you move to a new region and you want to get reconnected with a different region. As we heard, Wilson's moving from Korea to Singapore, and so maybe finding more Southeast Asian connections, that is a great way to think of this first timers concept that we run during getting ready for our annual conference. Joe, could you switch the slide? So what we're going to focus in on are the following. I think these are the pieces that we found most helpful as we get ready to head into London, Ontario to visit Western. So location matters, who's attending, some of the main events, sort of calling out anything special. One of the hallmarks of our conference is getting to stay in the residence halls at the university that is our host. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then really at the end is sort of our membership's way of sharing what they wish they would have known, insights. So really hearing from the larger 3,200 members that sharing what they wish they would have known heading into their first time. Next slide, please, Joe. So the location, I had the privilege of doing a site visit to London, Ontario, and the way I traveled from California was I flew into Ontario or Toronto's website or airport. Thank you. I'm losing my words. Traveled into the airport and then took the train. There are many different ways to get to London, Ontario. It is sandwiched between Toronto and Detroit in the US. So it is very accessible from either city. What is amazing is Western is used to hosting many, many visitors. And so their conference website talks about how to travel there, whether it's train, whether it's by bus. They have a direct bus from the Toronto Pearson Airport with a discount for our members. But there's also a regional airport. So I'm actually flying out of the airport this year or for the conference when I leave on Friday. So there's many different ways. I really encourage members to look at the website, read all their options if they have not already booked their travel. There is also many resources about London. It is a city that has everything from Uber to a great restaurant scene. They also have a music scene with the Juno Awards. It's thriving opportunity for you to explore that. But most of the conference, you're going to be on the campus of Western. So that is a chance to experience their facilities, and you really network on the campus. But there will be some time to head out into London where the university is situated. Next slide, please. So here's just a quick visual of its location. So, you know, one thing to keep in mind is it potentially could be cooler in the evenings because of the lake effect, as some people will say. It is still summertime, so we also are ready in case there's a heat wave. Fingers crossed that there won't be, but it is a time in the summer where the temperatures are quite pleasant in Canada, like in California, because we are so north in Canada. So something to keep in mind as you're figuring out what to bring to the conference. Next slide, please.
Actually, before we go on to the next slide, we're going to launch a poll. So for the audience members, here you go. Please take your time to fill this out. I'll leave this open just for a few more moments. Okay, and we're going to close the poll. And here you go. All right. Okay, on to the next slide.
So yes, we wanted to make sure everybody is well aware that we're going to London, Ontario, Canada, not London, UK. So I hope that was clear in that poll. So quick overview of who attends the conference and who you can expect in attendance. We have close to 1,500 attendees registered, so super exciting at that volume. So you will see various board members, both past and current, so that's exciting. And then we break out the different membership types. This will become much more clear based on the name tags that you get at registration. Come in and check out. So that will, those name badges will help you sort of sift out who's the high school counselor, who's on the admission side, who's in an organization. But really our members come from all over the world, and all will be open and ready to have conversations, whether it's in getting your cup of coffee in the morning or being on the dance floor in the evening. So don't be afraid to introduce yourself. And that will start real quickly with the first timer session. There will be over 500 first timers. So if you're listening and you're a first timer, know you are 1/3 of the conference, and it's super exciting to see all the new interest in the organization and our conference. So you will be very welcomed, and often people will just talk to you because they know you are a first timer. So that's exciting as well. Next slide, please.
All right, so I'm going to be jumping in and sharing a little bit more about the things that are actually happening during the conference. And there's a lot of stuff. And so by all means, please know that there's plenty of other resources, this being one of them. But there's plenty of resources out there already in terms of what's going on. So you can definitely check the website, which is really well put together, that goes through a lot of the detail. And so we're going to just highlight a few of them, as you can kind of go and see on the screen. But we want to make sure that you're fully aware in terms of the first timer session. That is going to be one of the things that kicks everything off. And that's going to be on Tuesday, July 9th at 3 p.m. And so as far as travel time and looking at and seeing when you're going to be arriving, we'd love it for everyone that is a first timer to attend this session. It's really going to go ahead and be a great time of seeing a lot of other people that are new to the conference and trying to connect in that way. And just taking a look at the rest of the screen, looking at some of the other things, like the opening ceremony is just a great time to get a scope of everyone that's going to be there, and it's going to be massive with 1,500 people, if not a few more. And so it's just a great time to really be encouraged by our affiliate and our membership. And of course, sessions and getting the professional development out of it is going to be important. And one new thing I'd like to highlight on the screen that we're going to be trying out this year is the Chatter That Matters. In terms of looking at the Chatter That Matters, I apologize, there's a PA announcement going on. In terms of the Chatter That Matters, that's something that's going to go ahead and be new. And that's going to go ahead and just be a networking time amongst colleagues over shared topics, right? And it's going to be very participatory. It's not going to be a time where it's going to be presenting, but it's basically going to go ahead and make a large conference feel smaller. So Chatter That Matters, that's something exciting. But a lot of other things, and one thing I want to mention in terms of the overall thing of what's happening, we want to keep in mind that you don't have to go ahead and feel so pressured to be involved in everything. It's going to be quite exhausting if you do that. And so even looking at some of the late night hospitality things, looking at that and be realizing, yeah, it is a great time to go ahead and hang out and network and get to know new people, without a doubt. But also knowing that, well, maybe you're dealing with jet lag and it's going to go ahead and be challenging to kind of deal with some of those kind of challenges physically. Self-care is really, really important. And so trying to take a look at the scope of what the schedule is and seeing exactly what are some of the things that are important to you, the things you definitely want to go ahead and make sure that you attend, I think it's going to go ahead and be great. We do have a few other things in there, like the 5K run and the golf scramble, which was kicked off last year. I did that last year. That was a lot of fun. And there's a lot of things happening simultaneously just to provide a lot of variety, like the trivia quiz, the lumberjack bingo. That has me a little bit excited and nervous at the same time in terms of bringing your own flannel. And then, of course, the raffle at the very, very bottom. You see a link for that, and there's a lot more information. A lot of things in terms of fundraising is going to be a part of this, just to support the affiliate and a lot of organizations. And so that's something that we really want to make sure that our members are aware of. So if we take a look at the next slide, please, we'll go ahead and just see some really vibrant pictures of some of the exciting things that are happening. And so the top left corner is a picture from our opening ceremony, some late night hospitality. Look at that action shot from the dodgeball tournament, and then our 5K run. And so again, these are just a lot of things, and there's a few blogs that are out there on our website. Again, I want to highlight that to kind of get a little bit more details in terms of, well, how do you go ahead and play dodgeball, or what is dodgeball? These kinds of things that are on our International ACAC website. So before I move on to another big event with the college and high school fairs, Joe, I think we have a poll that we're going to be jumping into real quick.
You are correct, Wilson. Here's our poll. So for the audience, please take a few moments to answer the poll, and we will post the results. Also, just a reminder that if you do have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to submit them in the question box, and we'll make sure that we address them at the end of the presentation. And we'll leave this open just for a little bit longer. Just looking how this goes, I wish there were a few more dodgeball people, but okay. All right, we're going to close the poll in just a few moments. And here are the results. Awesome. Okay. On to the next slide.
All right, and just, I know a question might come up later about it. As far as the 5K run and as far as the dodgeball, that's something that, we really just want great participation, right? You don't have to be a professional runner to go ahead and do the 5K. We know a lot of people just simply walk it and just want to get some good exercise and for the sake of camaraderie. Dodgeball, honestly, just go ahead and show up. I know that there's going to be people who can just sign up for it. Like as free agents, and that's totally possible. There are definitely people who've been playing on the same team for many years, and that's a lot of fun too. But again, no obligation or compulsion. If you want to just come and see grown-ups just throw some balls around and try to hit each other, that's a lot of fun too. You can go ahead and do that. And so again, there's a lot to go ahead and be involved with. In terms of jumping into this next slide, the college and high school fairs, without a doubt, that's something that gets a lot of questions and is also a big part of it. But we want to make sure that this slide is just kind of sharing about some of the details of it and some of the maybe tips to consider when going through the college and high school fair. So just to be clear, there are two fairs. There's one for colleges and then one for high school. And so it's going to go ahead and just be a great time. And you'll just see a lot of your members coming together. And it's a great time to kind of connect with other people as well. But as far as a few tips and things to go ahead and keep in mind, one thing that is often asked in terms of what to bring, and without a doubt, business cards, a lot of them is going to go ahead and definitely be a great tip. But another thing to go ahead and keep in mind is that since a lot of us are traveling, either whether we're on vacation and we're kind of putting this conference somewhere in there, or whether it's we're traveling to other college trips afterwards, a lot of that kind of stuff we want to keep in mind. Traveling light is going to go ahead and be important. So, bringing just a few brochures, bringing a tablecloth or a banner or a runner, with their college name on it. I think those are some things to go ahead and really keep in mind, because carrying around a lot of bulk is going to be really challenging to go ahead and do after the conference. And so that's something to go ahead and keep in mind. And there are, again, some other helpful guidelines. One question that was asked earlier in terms of, well, what are some of the suggestions, or are you able to go ahead and give out swag at your table, whether you're at college or a high school? And of course, yeah, absolutely. Things that are going to go ahead and really promote your institution is great. It is discouraged in terms of giving out any alcohol or liquor in terms of your table for the high school or college fair that was asked earlier. And so other than that, it's just a great time. And one thing to keep in mind as far as the strategy approaching the college and high school fair, there are a lot of colleges, a lot of high schools. You want to go ahead and really take a look at the floor plan. And there's going to be some tips and guidelines that you see at the very bottom, but trying to go ahead and really target the schools and the institutions you want to go ahead and visit. Trying to get through all of them will be quite overwhelming. And so kind of doing a little bit of research in advance and looking at what institutions you want to try to hit and be able to take the time to hit those specifically. I think it's going to go ahead and really be a great way to kind of go through it and get as much as you want to get accomplished. And so if we take a look at the next slide, you'll go ahead and see a picture of last year's college and high school fair. Again, just awesome time of just really recognizing our affiliate and just looking at the different institutions that we have and are a part of it. And so next slide, please. So again, kind of going back a little bit to mentioning that we have a lot that's going to go ahead and be offered. One is definitely social events and tours. And so if you haven't already received a lot of invitations for social events, don't worry, you most likely will, and you'll probably hear about many of them once you get to the conference, so that's not a concern. But also tours are definitely a part of it as well. And so please feel free to go ahead and click on that link later on and kind of see exactly what's available. And some things might be full, but there should definitely be some other things that are going to be available. I know Western is hosting something as well as a host, and so we want to take advantage of that opportunity as well. And then being connected and also checking through our Facebook, International ACAC Facebook page to see what are the other opportunities, both social events as well as tours. And I kind of love that little image there. I was born to be wild, but only until around 9 p.m. Another thing, talking about self-care, I will be honest, that is one of our panelists who went ahead and put that up. I won't go ahead and read out who that was. And if you can then move on to our next slide, please.
Wilson, before we do, we just want to get a sense from the audience about where they plan on staying during the conference. So audience members, here comes another poll your way. Please take a few moments to answer the residence hall question. I see that we do have some questions coming in, which is great. And I just want to remind everyone that we will be answering your questions at the end of the presentation. We'll have about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes at the end to address your questions. So please continue to ask. And I'll leave this open for a few more moments. And I'm going to close the poll right now. And here you go. All right. Okay. Next slide.
And if you are staying in the residences, again, this is one of the more popular options, as the poll showed, and it's great, especially because it really gives you a feel. For one, it really gets you plugged in and gives you a good feel of the host campus and the institution. So that's one positive thing there, kind of sleeping in the dorms. But also, it's just a short walk in a distance from everything else in the conference. So it really gives you a good sense of the space and the size of the campus itself. It is air conditioned, and a lot of times it is apartment style living where you have your own bedroom, and then you'll probably have a shared maybe living quarters as well as a restroom. So something go ahead and keep in mind. Linens, towels, toilets, those are all going to be provided. But of course, if you have your own that you like to go ahead and use, you're welcome to bring any of those kinds of things as well. And the one thing I'd also like to highlight there in terms of a portable reading light, as much as you'll have your own bedroom, you might not probably bring a lamp with you. And so in terms of bedside reading, or maybe kind of getting up and making your way over to the kitchen for some water or to the restroom. So maybe just like a portable reading light or something like that could go ahead and prove to go ahead and be helpful. That was definitely a good tip after my first conference. And then flip-flops for those people who would like to go ahead and have that. And then for those that are staying on campus, please know that breakfast is available within your residence halls. And so that's something that we want to just go ahead and highlight for those that are staying in the residences. All right, next slide.
Okay, I'm going to take over from here and give you guys a little bit of helpful information. As you've seen at the top of the screen, there's the predicted weather report, so hopefully it stays like that. It looks like it's going to be really beautiful weather. I guess that's based on years past. I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, as was mentioned, casual clothes, comfortable shoes. You will do a lot of walking from session to session, walking around campus. So just make sure that you are feeling really comfortable and casual so that you can enjoy everything that is happening during the conference. But of course, as you know, particularly if you live in Texas, if you go outside and then come inside and it's freezing cold because of the AC, you might want to have a little wrap or something to put on. I know I certainly need one in my office here on a daily basis. So also think about that. And it was also mentioned that in the evening it could be a little bit chillier, so maybe that wrap or that scarf or that light jacket for the evening events as well. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we won't have any rain, but just in case we do, of course, a raincoat or an umbrella for possible showers will be useful to have, although to be fair, I can understand how you might not want to carry that around. We talked about some of the events. Some of them are quite sporty. There's dodgeball, a 5K run, which I will not be doing. But for those of you who are sporty, please think about bringing your sports shoes and your sports clothes, your workout gear, whatever it is that you feel most comfortable playing dodgeball in, or running and / walking. Those of us here, well, probably all of us who are on here, we travel a lot, so you know to bring a converter plug if you're coming from somewhere that has a different system. From the United States or Canada, a converter plug for your electronics will be really helpful. At the fair, as Wilson mentioned, as you go through, you might want to pick up some either pennants or information, some leaflets that people are handing out. So just a little, like a tote bag would be useful to bring as you walk through the fairs. And then another thing that apparently is a thing at International ACAC, and as I mentioned, I'm a new person to this, is country or state lapel pins and lapel pin trading. So if you have lapel pins for your school or your country or your state, bring some with you and then you can trade them at the fair or trade them throughout the conference. Now that I know this is actually something that I have just learned myself, I'm going to bring Study Texas pins. And so if anybody wants a Study Texas pin, come see me and you will be rewarded. Next slide, please. Okay, helpful information. Again, as Becky had mentioned at the beginning, the name badge, we will all be having those conference name badges. And they're a great way as you're walking through the conference to get to know who it is that you're who's walking towards you, because they're color coded. University reps, high school counselors, independent counselors, exhibitors are all going to have a different color. So as someone's walking towards you, you can kind of tell who they're going to be by the color code on their badge. And it's you can go up and introduce yourself if you see someone, if you're an independent counselor, someone else is an independent counselor, you have that connection, and so use that to your advantage. Also, please remember that while you're at the conference to wear your badges, because it's required to enter all of the sessions, the meetings, the socials, just wear it all the time. That's general conference etiquette, I think. Check the schedule to prioritize your sessions. All session presentations will be available online following the conference. So that's great. So you know beforehand what you want to go to, maybe before the conference, maybe a week before. Take a look at all the different sessions. Think, I like this one, I like this one. Make a list, prioritize which ones you want to go to. And then at the end, as you said, after the conference, those that you maybe didn't get to, perhaps two were running at the same time that you really like the look of, so you had to choose one over the other, you'll be able to get the session presentation afterwards because it will be available after the conference. Again, just to go back to social media, if you are active on social media, it would be great to join in on that. Check the website, find out what our hashtags are, join us on social media to promote and generate the excitement of International ACAC in London. Download the app. There's a conference app that you can download onto your phone or your mobile device. And that is a great way, when I was just talking about prioritizing sessions and deciding which ones you want to go to, that app is a fantastic way to be able to look at what's going on and say, okay, I need to be here then, and this is what I want to do. You can kind of create a little schedule for yourself, and you have it on your phone, which you're going to carry around with you anyway. And so then it's just right there instead of having sheets of papers all over the place, which is how it was in the old days. Breathe and enjoy it. I probably didn't take a breath in this entire 2 minutes that I've been speaking on this presentation, so I'm going to breathe right now and enjoy this. You are going to really enjoy the conference. You are joining what some consider to be a giant family reunion. And as I had mentioned at the beginning, last year I was a true first-timer, so this is only my second conference. I had kind of engaged previously with International ACAC at my previous institution, but I had never gone to a conference. I really didn't get involved. And after last year's conference in New Orleans, I thought, I love this organization. I want to do more. I want to be involved. And so now I'm on the mentor committee, and now here I am doing a webinar. So there's a lot of ways to get involved. After this conference, you too will probably think, this is really great and I want to do more. And International ACAC is really welcoming, and there are lots of opportunities provided for you to get more involved and do more after the conference if you want to. And I think you will. I think you'll find that it's great. I find it intimidating going into a place where I don't know anybody, and that's how it was last year. But I have to say, people did really make me feel like I was kind of, you know, a new member, but a member of the family. And so hopefully you'll feel that way as well. And please come to that first-timer session. As we said, it's on that first day, because that first-timer session, you're going to be meeting people like me last year who are new to everything, and it's a great way to just get some familiar faces right from, you know, the get-go. And if you see somebody at a social event, i.e. me standing by myself, not having anybody to talk to, come up to me, talk to me, or go to somebody, you know, and they might be a first-timer too, and so they'll really welcome having that person to chat to and to be made to feel a little bit more comfortable at what can be an intimidating event. So we don't want you to feel intimidated. Next slide, please. Okay, travel tips. So hopefully we're all seasoned pros, but it's been said several times, but it's worth mentioning once again, your ticket should be to not London Heathrow or Gatwick, LHR, LGW, wrong London, it should be London, Ontario, in Canada. Some people are flying to Detroit or Buffalo. I am flying to Detroit, actually. That's where I'm going. So I'm going San Antonio to Detroit, and then I'm renting a car and driving from Detroit up. So there'll be a couple of different ways to get to London from wherever you are. You can check the website for further information on that, and then also check for any ETA, ESTA, or ETIAS, which I must confess I'm not sure what that is. Requirements, know before you go. So if you are from a country, if you're a passport holder from a country that may have some kind of travel authorization that's necessary prior to your travel, Canada is this ETA, if you're going to go to the US, it's the ESTA. Please make sure that you do that so that you don't fly in and then you're held up at the airport because you haven't filled out some kind of a form that you needed to do in advance. So usually these days it's really easy. Just go to the website, fill it out, and and you're all sorted to be able to come and go quite quickly and easily. And that's it for me. Next slide.
Okay, so I have the pleasure of sharing some information with you guys. Again, this is maybe my 5th International ACAC, but there are a number of resources that have already been created from previous years before. So from 2017, conference networking tips. I think what was mentioned that in your name badge, you actually have 2 pockets. So it's nice to put maybe your business cards on one pocket side, and then when you collect someone else's, put that on the other side. So that's just something I personally have done, but it's also helpful for you guys to see that. And then how to win in dodgeball. If you've never played dodgeball, I recommend that movie with our friend Ben Stiller. It's a good one. Dodge, dip, dive, duck, dodge. And they say if you can dodge traffic, you can dodge a ball. So don't run into traffic, but I do think that if you are maybe new to this and you are looking for a team, know that, as Wilson said, you can actually just go ahead and walk on, find some friends, and join a team if you don't have one already. In addition, the social media tips. Last year, and I did confirm it with our communications team, they are raffling off some gift cards. Last year, I believe they had Amazon gift cards. So it's a matter of knowing how to hashtag and what to hashtag. So during that first timers committee, we're going to go ahead and share what those hashtags are. And even during that general conference meeting, which happens at the beginning of the conference. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. In addition to that, if you find yourself to be a little bit more introverted and you see yourself at a conference with these people who already know each other, and there are 1,500 of them, know that there are resources. There's that International ACAC website, which actually has how to survive it. It is a webinar, so feel free to actually attend or view that for your own viewing pleasure. If we move on to the next slide, we actually will learn from what some of our past colleagues have said. So this is a poll that was actually on the Facebook International ACAC group. I actually polled the people, and I really thought that only 2 people were going to answer, and there were over 50 responses. So I condensed it into maybe 2 pages. But I think it's really important that, you know, maybe you do travel with friends from different universities, and this is really the only time we get to see each other. But it's really nice to meet someone from the guidance counseling side, maybe someone that you've never met before. So Pablo Torres had recommended just mixing up those lanyard colors. In addition, bring a lot of business cards. Bring more than you would think. And I think one of the things that was mentioned earlier, which was, and also later on in this slide, is just bring 10 brochures, lots of business cards, and a lot of pennants. Those pennants will walk away in a good way at the university fair. And Becky, who's in this panel, said strike up conversations with someone sitting next to you in sessions and in meals, in lines when you're waiting for food. That's probably one of the best ways to really network. I really liked what Kathleen Schultz said, because at the end of the day, this can be one of the most exhausting conferences, but one of the best conferences you will ever attend. And so if you are someone who just maybe needs to relax a little bit, maybe you're coming from Singapore or from the Middle East and you're just like, I'm really jet lagged, take that time to take care of yourself. We mentioned it is a casual conference, and that was actually resonated throughout, just because you don't need to be business professional at this conference. And I think one of the questions that came up earlier was, what does casual actually mean? I would say definitely something that you feel comfortable in, especially with the shoes. And so I wouldn't necessarily say bring your stilettos unless you really want to wear them. But knowing that if you have your university polo, khakis, slacks, that's probably good for you. And then also buying raffle tickets. One thing that we actually asked a little earlier was, will you take Canadian dollars or will you take US dollars? That was actually a really important question, because if you find yourself saying, like, I actually really want to purchase some raffle tickets, but I don't have the means, know that you can actually pay before. So on the on the Western University website, you can actually go ahead and look at some of the raffle tickets, purchase that with your credit card, but they will take both US dollars and Canadian dollars. And then Louis Cardenas says, shake that raffle ticket box just so you can hopefully get something. If we go to the next slide, part of, I think, what we really focus on here is just making sure to, if you're interested, attend sessions on the other side of the desk. Reach out to counterparts in nearby colleges and invite them to meet over snacks with maybe guidance counselors. I thought that was really great. Bring snacks. I'm someone who always likes snacks. If you want snacks, have them in your purse. You can find me. I probably will have something. In addition to that, you can walk the 5K. I think that's brilliant. I think that's really good for people to know that you don't have to run the 5K. to be a participant in that. And again, making sure you know that all sessions will be posted on the website. So if you weren't able to get to 2 of the sessions, just know that at the same time, there will be postings later on. There are amazing scholars who attend. Make sure to connect with them. And then someone actually did mention, don't pay for anything until your visa is issued. So that was actually interesting, and there was a question about that this morning. Like, let's say my visa is not approved, what would happen? You would contact the International ACAC, Teresa Schweizer, and they would be able to communicate with you your next steps. Again, walking is something you're going to experience a lot of. So if you do have gym shoes, wear them. And I really liked what Anna said, which was to put your phone away, especially when you're in a session and you're waiting for your session. It's really easy to just sit, look at emails because you're away from the office. But it is really nice to actually take that time to turn to your left, turn to your right, tap the person in front of you and say, hey, I'm new here. Is this your first time at International ACAC? Again, one of the things that is really great, I guess it could be a blessing and a curse, but everyone knows everyone, including your boss. So even though we always say it's a casual conference, it is still a professional conference. So be on your best behavior as well. I think that's really important. When we get to that next slide, I did also ask on Facebook, I know we're going to get there, but it said to use one word to describe International ACAC and the conference. Hey, Joe, can we get to that next slide, please? There you go. Perfect. And I think this was brilliant. This was really nice to see that you see the word family, supported, connected, fun, collaboration, camaraderie. But family was something that was resonated throughout the conversation. And I think that, as we said, it is like a big reunion. Sometimes you only see some of your colleagues, your friends, for 24 hours, not even, maybe it's a 1-hour school visit in Korea, and then you're on to your next school visit. So I think this is a way for us to connect together again. And so when we look at this International ACAC, it is about 1 week long. Take that opportunity to experience all the things that Western has created for us for International ACAC, because I think that this has been one of the best conferences I've ever attended, and I really do hope that all of you guys who are attending do experience that as well. And so I think we move on to our last slide, which I'll pass it on to Joe.
All right. Thank you so much for all of your input. And we do have some questions from the audience. And I wanted to just mention again, if you have questions that were not answered, or questions that you have right now, please feel free to enter them into the question box. Now is the time to start questioning our panelists for your most important questions. And Jessica, you're gonna get the first one. Casual jeans, not that casual? What are your thoughts?
I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to defer because I've only been to the one conference last year.
What did you observe?
Jeans, yes, no?
Yeah, I think jeans are fine. Jeans, capris, shorts are even fine. You'll see a lot of women in Bermuda shorts. Again, Tulane, muggy. Western is going to be less muggy, but potentially could be warm up in London, Ontario. So, I think if you're on summer vacation, what you're wearing around casually, that you would go to an evening dinner sitting outside on an outdoor porch is totally appropriate. You'll see tank tops, you'll see blouses. It's really, I think you'll see a lot of universities in logo polos, which go well with jeans or khakis as well.
And if I could just go ahead and add to that, as far as remembering some of the things that I would go ahead and bring in terms of formal wear, the most formal I find myself is honestly at the college and the high school fair. And that's usually where I'm just kind of repping my institution by just wearing a polo with my school's logo on it and with khakis or with jeans. Other than that, wearing a collared shirt, I usually don't find myself wearing that too much, especially because it's during the summer and most of the places that the conferences have been relatively warm. And so definitely being mindful of self-care, and wearing comfortable clothes is really important. Maybe if you want to go ahead and go out one particular night, there's a few evenings that might be free, or you just want to go ahead and get off campus and do like a fun out to dinner kind of thing. You're welcome to do that, but and dress up. But other than that, I think the college and the high school fair is as formal as I've ever found myself.
Awesome. Wilson and Samantha, I have a question for you both from university perspective and from a school counseling perspective. And Wilson, you touched on this when you were discussing the format for the college fairs and the university fair, that we do obviously a flip fair. The question is, for how many people do you bring documents for distribution? And I think you touched on it, but if you could just reiterate what it's like for you at the school counseling side, and then Samantha, if you could talk about what it's like and what you bring for the university side. So Wilson, do you mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Traditionally, in terms of the things I actually have on my table, I usually end up having some profiles and definitely a lot of business cards. And then the other thing I failed to go ahead and mention is I have to have my laptop, because a lot of times colleges will come around to the high school fair and ask about scheduling appointments for this upcoming fall season. And so that's going to be helpful to have your computer with your school's calendar and trying to book some of those college visits. But as far as answering the question in terms of how many, honestly, I bring about maybe like 20 to 30 high school profiles, and I almost never get rid of them. A lot of the times it's because I have a business card that has a QR code on the back that has a link to our high school profile. That's a lot easier, I think, for colleges to kind of carry around, or at least my business card that has a website that has a link to the profile. And so besides that, I have a few swag pieces, like water bottles or hand sanitizers, and again, about 20 or 30. And those also I usually don't get through, because a lot of times it's difficult to travel with some of those things, despite the size that they might be small. But that's kind of the approximate number of things that I bring.
And from the university perspective, I really will probably not bring more than 10 pieces of material, to be completely honest with you. One, it's heavy. Two, no one wants it. And I joke, but really, again, I think about what's happening. I'm part of the Chicagoland tour, so there are people going from London, then coming to Chicago, and after Chicago, they may or may not stay, and then they go home. And so that's about 2 weeks of traveling, living in a hotel. And paper isn't necessarily as light as you would like for it to be. And so as Wilson said, if you can have something maybe printed on a QR code that someone can scan, that's really great. I will probably bring about 50 to 75 business cards. So I think that is something that those go really fast. And a lot of our colleagues, maybe at the high school side and even at the university side, have switched institutions. And so it's kind of nice to say, hey, this is my updated university, just to make sure that you have that information. I will also bring a lot of pen-ins, just because a lot of schools that we might not be able to get to, they might say, hey, I have a student from my school at your university, and I would love to have a pennant to display. Those are the things that I probably would bring, and maybe about 30 would be good. If you want to bring 50, chances are they'll walk away.
Awesome. And then just a technical question about the banners at the college fair and the university fair and the school counseling fair. When you talked about floor length banners, did you mean standing banners or did you mean table banners? And if you could just...
I think those are the standing banners.
Awesome. Becky, this question is for you, and it's related to the bus tour. And I guess there's a question about it filling up. When does the bus tour open up for registration?
Usually in the new year, usually January, February, it'll be posted.
Okay, because this person had a question that it was, they tried to register in April, but it was filled, but that's...
Yeah, it fills pretty quickly. Us and the Council of International Schools usually post right after the new year around, because the location of the conference is known in September, right? So we already know, and so they'll start planning, have a tentative group of universities by the new year. And then some of the other bus tours happen, anywhere from February, March, April. I mean, Sam, when did the Chicagoland kind of get together? You guys have had yours open for a while?
We had it, yeah, open for a while, and like we've notified people. Again, it's an application process. Every kind of summer tour has like something different. I would probably say some of these consortiums that work together, they actually will have their flyers at the university fair. So I know that like the Chicagoland tour has a QR code that you can scan to receive updates for 2020 already. And so those are just maybe things, if you are a university, maybe things you want to think about, but from the high school side, maybe anticipating how to get into those tours as well.
And I'll just make one last plug that usually when the bus tour for International ACAC opens up, there is a notification either in a newsletter or the monthly digest. So important to read your email if this is something you really want to participate in next year, and keep your eyes out. Same thing with applications for opportunities for involvement. There's quite a few volunteers helping us put together this conference, and that was shared through newsletters and monthly emails, as well as our Facebook page. So just really paying attention if this is something you're interested in participating in for next year. It is shared quite often as soon as it's open, which is also the rush of why it fills, I believe, is because people are really reading and wanting to be a part of it. So.
Great. And just a question about etiquette for the actual tours. We talk about during the conference not bringing a lot of materials to be shared among attendees of the conference, but when it comes to the tours, the people that are visiting the schools, should they be bringing information for the schools about their institutions? Samantha, can you?
I mean, that's really up to you now. I don't want you to have to feel obligated to bring things. If you know, you can send it via email to us later on. I think that that's usually really helpful. But I understand that you know, some people just want to say thank you so much for hosting us, and they end up bringing like a gift, and we always like appreciate things like that, but it's not necessary. We again appreciate everything you guys all do, but you know, less is more, and I think, you know, that's something that can help you guys out in like the packing stages.
Jessica, this question is for you. Two things. Can you talk about just the college fair and the school fair? The question is, do they run simultaneously? And then the other question is, let's say you're at the conference and there isn't a session that is sparking your interest or an event that's sparking your interest. Are you allowed to walk around the city and go back to your room?
Okay, so the college fair and the university fair are not simultaneously. They're on 2 different days, or at least they were last year in New Orleans. I'm assuming it's the same this year. So that allowed, because essentially if you're a university rep, at the university fair, you're standing behind the table and it's the high school counselors who are walking around, and then it's vice versa. At the high school fair, it will be the university reps walking around the tables. So they're not held simultaneously, and it's for me as a university rep, of course, I'm there standing at the table during the university fair, and it's a great way for me to promote UTSA, because lots of people, you know, I have discovered since I started working at UTSA is not very well known. So it's a great way for me to get the UTSA name out there in front of college counselors who I might not otherwise normally have met. And then vice versa, at the high school fair, I get to walk around. I think it was Wilson who mentioned prioritizing. So looking at the list of who will be in attendance and saying, okay, I would like to hit this school and this school and this school, and I have an interest in this school. I've had applications from this school, so I know I want to go to those tables because I have noticed in the past year maybe an increased interest from this particular country or city or school. So I'm really making use of that time. That's how I did it last year at the high school fair. And then when I was at my university side of it, people stopping by who I might not normally have met. So they're both really useful, and I would highly encourage everybody to go and attend both and make use of it. In terms of the other thing, I think it was, are you able to skip out if you want to go and see London, Ontario, and there's nothing happening at the conference that interests you? I think that was what I understood you to say, Joe.
Correct.
I suppose, yes, that's fine. We're all adults, you know. If if you look at the schedule and you're like, nope, nothing here for me today, I'm going to go check out Ontario, that's totally up to you. You know, I don't know if anyone disagrees with me, but you know, hopefully, I would say with the fantastic schedule that the organizers have put on, I mean, you'll look, there's lots of great sessions, there's lots of great social events, there's all kinds of networking opportunities. So hopefully your attention will be held throughout the entire 3 or 4 days that you're in London at the International ACAC Conference and not want to skip out on anything. But I don't know what London, Ontario has in terms of tourist sites or points of interest. So there could be something really fantastic. I haven't yet done my research on that, which I need to do.
So we have about 5 minutes left. If you have any final questions, please feel free to submit them. Wilson, can you talk a little bit about how the fairs are organized? Are they by region? Are they by university type?
Yeah, thanks so much for mentioning that, Joe. Yeah, absolutely. So usually they're broken down by region. And just to go ahead and give a little bit of detail, both fairs, again, are as Jessica just mentioned, are on different days. The college fair is, in fact, first on Wednesday at 4:30, and exactly at the same time the following day on Thursday is when the high school fair is. So they're usually broken down by region first, and then within region, then they're in alphabetical order. At least that's how it's been in the past. So I understand that to be the same for this upcoming year. And so kind of getting a gauge in terms of, well, I need to hit this region, and then, oh, this is the institution I want to specifically hit. You can kind of walk through. There should be a floor plan available to specifically indicate where the institution that you're interested in is located. So that'll go ahead and make things a little bit easier. But yeah, it's going to go ahead and just be a great time to kind of connect. And it's not a lot of time, frankly. It's an hour and 15 minutes. If you are manning a table, it is definitely recommended to get there early, and there will be time prior to that to go there and set up your table. And so, you know, keep that in mind. But besides that, I think being very strategic in terms of where you want to go and trying to do that by region and alphabetically is going to go ahead and be the best way around it. So hopefully that answers your question, Joe.
All right, and I just want to add one thing. I think because you registered for the conference, you automatically have a table, your institution, your school. So if there's more than one attendee, it's great to either all be behind the table. No, it might be a little squished, but you're welcome. If you've got 2 reps coming or 2 counselors, you're welcome to both stand at the table or take shifts over the hour and 15. But the big, I guess, point I want to say is your institution name or your school's name, or we this year are also welcoming independent educational consultants to the high school fair. If they would like a table, they're going to sign up for one. Their name will be on the table, so if you don't show, members are going to be walking by saying, oh, where is this person? So do keep that in mind. It's automatic. There's no extra cost. It's part of the conference. And I think the theme of the college fair and the high school fair over the years as the organization has grown and the conference has grown, it's when people see each other. So if you really want to find somebody, the college fair and the high school fair becomes the easiest place to finally find them versus the 2.5 days trying to sort through the crowds. So keep that in mind as well. Lines do form, and so sometimes either waiting till the end or being the first one in will help you for any of those lines. So just a couple insider sort of pieces. So please do show for the fair, the high school fair, because it will be noticed. And again, no penalty. It's just you want your school to or your college to know that you weren't at the table when it was part of the conference.
All right, Becky, so we're going to do not a rapid fire, but batch of questions that are going to go to you as our president-elect and organizer of this conference.
Thanks, Joe.
You got it?
Got it, I'm ready.
We can start off with a softball question. On July 8th, is there any event except for check-in, or are there other things that people can do?
Remind me, is July 8th a Tuesday?
Oh boy.
It is a Monday.
It's a Monday.
It is a Monday. So there might be some college tours for Western. Otherwise, no, unless you pre-registered for the pre-conference, which if you have not registered, it is full. So Monday, that is happening, but that is it. So
Pre-conference registration question came up and you just answered that, so thank you very much.
Okay.
The next question is about housing. And we're really dispelling rumors in the rumor mill here. So someone is registered to stay in one specific hall, but they've heard that they don't know exactly where they're staying until they get there. Is that true?
correct. You don't know until you get there.
Okay, even though they're registered in a hall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
excellent. Next question is really about health and wellness. Is there a pharmacy within walking distance? Is there
There's
a
one
walk-in
right on
clinic?
campus. Yep, there's a pharmacy right on campus. As far as the walk-in clinic, that would be part of the, what is that called? Help center that is going to be stationed at all the residence halls as well as on the main campus. So you could go up to one of them and they'll let you know where the closest one is. But certainly there might be, the closest one may be on campus and it may be off campus. So that would be a great help center question when you're on the ground, but there is a pharmacy within the student union as well as really close by to campus.
Okay, thank you. And another question is about our new Chatter That Matters. What is the format of this activity?
Yeah, so the format is there's going to be 15 different topics that will be shared. It'll be in the conference app as well as in the conference program. And the topics range from sustainable travel to is there a new way to think about advocating for our field? So it's a range of topics and the format is very casual. The folks who have signed up to facilitate these, their idea is to facilitate. It's not necessarily a lecture or a typical session, so they may have activities, they may have roundtable discussions, they may run a panel. It's really up to them, but these are facilitators who are members who have sort of raised their hand and said, I'd like to facilitate this. It's sort of an extension of a coffee break, so think of it as this time to, okay, there's a topic that sounds interesting, or maybe there's two and you spend half the time at one chatter and then you head over to the other one. There's actually a Chatter That Matters that's going to be silence and meditation. And if you want to just take this break, that is also there. So really, if one of the topics doesn't interest you or you're unsure about this sort of less than formal sort of collaboration of topics, then you can also just sit and drink coffee and get to know other members. It's meant, the first day is a very hectic day. There is many sessions, there are many things to do. It's kind of, we sort of using this hour to chat and network, but also sort of slow down the day because we do think there's important learning happening, and sometimes that learning happens best in a casual and different environment, so we're spicing it up. But it's up to you and how much you want to put into it, but it's very participatory. The idea is that the facilitators are going to be facilitating a conversation or an activity and not you sitting there passively listening. So that's sort of the intent behind those chatters that matter.
Thank you. And we have, we're just over time, and there's two things just to mention. One is there's just a follow-up question on the housing. So if someone has received a confirmation for Ivy Spencer Leadership Center, does that mean that their reservation's been voided, or does it mean they just don't know where inside that center they're going to be?
Yeah, that is pretty much a hotel, so that is not a residence hall in the same way where majority of people are staying. So they chose the hotel option on campus, the Ivy Leadership Center. So if they have that reservation, then they should keep that, and they're going to a hotel-like facility that's on campus.
Excellent. There's one more comment from someone from Toronto that said, it's going to be hot and muggy, just be ready for some humidity. And that's just a good tip to have. So at this point, I want to thank you very much. Thank you to our esteemed panel for your insight. This is very exciting. Please note, for those that are in attendance, that this session has been recorded and will be available on the International ACAC website for future viewing. Thank you to the audience for joining us, and keep a lookout for the next session in our Webinar Wednesday series. This concludes our Wednesday presentation, and I look forward to seeing you all at the conference very soon. Thank you again, and have a good morning, good afternoon, or good night.